Well, hello and welcome to Association Transformation. Love is in the air. Tomorrow is Valentine's. Andrew, thanks for joining me. I'm sure you're busy setting up dinner dates and buying flowers and getting your suit pressed. But I appreciate you joining us for some more nonprofit conversations. This is important stuff too.
And I think it's telling that you're sat there with a bouquet of red roses behind you. How very timely.
So I'll be honest, and I'm okay with this. I bought them for myself.
Fair enough.
And I think that's okay. They were on sale at the grocery store, and I'm like, you know what? I want some color in my office. I'm not going to wait for a man to rescue me and buy me flowers. I'm getting myself some damn flowers, and so there they are. But thanks for noticing them. I appreciate that.
Well, that's very good. Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Sorry for the monologue.
Well, that's fine. I'm good anyway. How are you?
Oh yeah, how are you? Sorry. All right, so let's focus.
Yeah.
Transatlantic conversation now exploded into an international global discussion every month, every 2 weeks of association issues, nonprofit innovations. I'm excited to welcome a new guest and an old friend. Today we wanted to chat about change leadership. And I think there's a side conversation to be had here, but I'm really excited to welcome our friends from the American Society of Interior Designers, a pretty awesome organization. I mean, when we talk about groups going from good to great, this organization is awesome. Like they're above that standard, evolution. So I'm excited to welcome an old friend, old meaning we've known each other for a long time. Not that either of us are old, but we have a lot of good times at ASAE annual meetings. So we'll leave that in the past. But Jessica Irizarry, hello, how are you?
Hello.
Senior Associate of Chapter and Program Development. Thanks for coming. Thanks for finally joining me on Association Transformation.
Yeah, thanks for having this old gal back.
Old gal, stop it. Well, you were part of the conversation, maybe even a little bit of debate, because I wanted to meet Allison. I really wanted to meet Allison Marrero, and she's a new member of the ASID team. But before we fully introduce Allison, I want to take this moment, Jessica, in your full glory. Tomorrow is your birthday.
Happy birthday to me, and happy Galentine's to all of you girls out there, and happy Valentine's to all you lovers.
Andrew, what is that face? Andrew just made the weirdest sour face. Have you not heard the term Galentine's?
No, I don't know what that means. Galentine's, I don't know what that means.
It's like when you buy yourself flowers.
Okay?
Oh, right. Okay, right.
And you hang out with your girlfriends, and you don't need a date. You just call some girlfriends and you open a bottle of wine and you celebrate.
Okay,
Exactly.
great. I'm a little bit worried, Lise, why this is the second monologue you've gone into now about being on your own and not needing
Which is weird because I'm married. I
was going to say, I mean, it's a bit worrying, but go on.
All right, well, don't tell my husband. But sorry. So, Jessica, I'm not going to sing you happy birthday because I don't want to scare away our 20-some listeners. But happy birthday. I hope you have an amazing week. You do get to celebrate all month. So
I do.
happy birthday. Thanks for joining us on your birthday eve.
Sure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And Allison, it's such a pleasure to meet you.
I am so glad to be here. And I have to tell you, the impetus behind this was my sweet Jessica sent me some of your podcasts. And I thought, oh, I really like this. So mark me as your 14th, 15th, or 16th listener, depending on when you're doing the hashtags. I reached out to you on LinkedIn, and this is how this whole thing got started. So I'm really honored. Thank you all.
No, thank you. Well, and it's so exciting. We've never had a chief brand experience officer before.
That is a mouthful.
That's an amazing, I love that we have even that title exists these days.
I don't know what it is, but I know we need it.
Yeah, Andrew has no idea what that is. And to be honest, I don't either. I don't what is that? How do you rise to that occasion?
Well, you take a deep breath first, and you start there. And really what it was the marriage of a couple of different concepts, right? So the team that I oversee at ASID is really the membership side of things, the chapters, as of course, as you know, aligned with Jessica there. And so that part of it is really the experience. What are the experiences that our members are getting when they are joining, when they're renewing, when they're at conferences with us? So what is that experience that we can provide and all the facets that a member might have when they're with us? And then the brand portion is, what's our story? What are we saying? What does ASID stand for? Who are we going after, and who should be part of our society? And so when you bring those two together, you get a really long title. You get Chief Brand Experience Officer. I go by Al, so we shortened it to just Al to help out.
So your name is short and your title is extra long.
That's exactly right.
I love it. I love it. Well, and what's also interesting, not only about the impressive resume that you come to this with, but that you come from industry. You come from the industry that this, impressive professional society represents. And, you hear a lot of debate about whether an organization should hire from the nonprofit world and an association expert or someone from the industry they represent. And you're that unicorn. How are things going?
That's a great question. And I think one of the advantages I had coming into this role was that experience, right? You hear people often say on the other side. Well, I've been on the other side. So I knew what it was like to engage and be part of associations from the peripheral looking in. I have also come from some time working in academics. So I bring that to the table as well. And so it's just a mishmash of all of these skill sets that I've learned over, oh golly, guys, 27, 28 years. Yeah, it started very, very young.
Yes, the 8-year-old internship.
Yeah, the labor laws have changed definitely since then. So what I think, though, to answer your question is that lens I come with is framed a little differently, right? So I'm not pulling from experiences from other associations that I've worked in. Rather, I'm bringing that sort of corporate industry lens to what I do. And so I ask a lot of questions. It creates a lot of why. Only because I'm curious, not because it's right or wrong. It helps me understand how we do things and why we do things well, and why we do the things that we do the way that we do. And so I really have loved embracing not knowing all the answers right off the bat and learning them as I go, because I think it's making me a better leader.
Well, that professional curiosity and I think willingness to say, I don't know. Let's try something. I have perspective and I have experience, but I don't have an answer. I mean, that must be very empowering to your team and to your chapters, that you're not coming in with preconceived notions. There's a listening phase here. And you all at ASID have a fairly new CEO.
We do.
And go ahead.
And one of the things I like about Coy is you used a word I liked earlier, unicorn, right? He brings a sort of a different perspective as well. He's an interior designer. He's been an educator. He sat on the board and now he's on staff. And so he also brings that perspective of the outsider coming in and looking at it with the experience, though, of having been part of ASID in different facets. And so it's been a pleasure thus far to work with him in that space.
So what does change look like? I mean, now that he's lived it for a little while, he's obviously brought to life some of his promises, some of his campaign promises. You're in place. I know Jessica and the chapters, there's discussions of investment and support, and everything's possible. This is a very exciting time at the organization. But in true sense, both internally and externally, what does change really look like? I mean, how can you meet? What are the expectations and how can you possibly, meet them?
Okay, so that is a huge question.
It's only as big as your title. It's only as big as your title.
So I'll start and frame a couple of things that right off the bat. One of the things that I think, and Jess can attest to this, is that at the beginning, you need to listen. You need to listen because you don't know what you need to change until you've been there a little bit to pick up on what's going on. And so I think it's been about 90 days, right? So I'm still in that space of figuring out what's working and what do we need to do. So I think that's the first. The word I use frequently with the team is transparency. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. So while I'm looking at what we might want to change, I'm going to need to understand the why behind some things. So transparency is something. Patience, my gosh, patience. I am a big fan of how can we make things move really, really fast. And in the association world, we know that things don't move really, really fast. They have a tempo. We have a board. We have bylaws. We have policies. We have all of these layers to make us successful. And so learning to navigate in how change and working within that framework so that I can make change work is important. And you said something interesting, internally and externally, how does that work? Right now, I'm very internally focused. I'm internally focused on the team. What is important to them? What do they like about their jobs? What would they like to do differently about their jobs? And so change there is probably one of my most, it's a big drumbeat for me right now, because I want to make sure that the team that I have, which is really incredible, is finding value in what they do and enjoying what they do. So if there's change in anything, it's understanding what they're doing and changing to fit what they think they could be doing more of and helping them find the path to do that. Externally, lots of things too, but I'll pause there.
Okay, so I mean, obviously I'm hearing your incredible enthusiasm. Like you say, 90 days in the job, and it's a super exciting time for you, but I know that you understand that change. Like I suspect that I'm a change junkie, and I suspect that you might be a change junkie as well. It excites you. You see the opportunity in it. Change can be terrifying for some people, and particularly when we're talking about internally, for the team in particular. I'm curious as to how are you reassuring the team that actually this is, you're not there as the silent assassin, as it were. You're not there to destabilize the environment. You're not there to, to upend everything for the sake, change for change's sake. How are you working? How is the team? And actually, Jess, you're part of that team. You're seeing it. You're living the dream as well from a different perspective. What's the kind of dynamic and the kind of dialogue that's going on with internally with the staff team to sort of give them that sense that, look, change is happening, change is part of life, change is a good thing, but don't be terrified by it, but understand it. What's the dynamic there? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that change for the sake of change is just something that people are tired of, right? So it's a very tiresome concept. But when you change for intention, for purpose, for value, for betterment, experience, and growth, that's a little bit different. So the staff has really embraced this executive level leadership change and all of the great ideas and experience they bring to the table as well. So bringing that, Al mentioned earlier, bringing that corporate industry lens. I've been in corporate America. I've been in, nonprofit sector. I've been in the political space. So I've seen it all and experienced it all. What I really like about what's happening here with this particular leadership group is that they're really not afraid to fail quickly, to win quickly, to pivot, to change, to see what doesn't work. And I think associations historically have been very, very, very fearful of failing because of that volunteer workforce piece, because of the nature behind their bottom lines. If they're a membership organization, they've got, their entire membership base to answer to. If they're a charitable organization, they have an entire, industry that's trying to help people to answer to. So we've always been traditionally and historically change averse and risk averse. So I think it's nice to come in with this corporate lens that Al has, that her counterpart Casey has, that Coy has, and really make us better. I think it's a really great dash of ingredient that we needed to propel our mission forward, which I think is the really biggest part here. And so everyone's really kind of embraced it. I will say, change is exhausting. It really is. And it never stops really. But I think the catalyst here, or the focus here, is to focus on the thing that you want to change, and then everything that you do is moving towards that goal. And that's the difference here. I think it's that corporate lens that Al was talking about, that focus piece.
Well, I love the safe space that Al has created, obviously, within the team, that you're able to say that. And my favorite piece of that was being quick to fail. If we're going to experiment, if we're going to try, if we're going to pivot, let's do so with intention so that we can learn from it and evolve. To me, that's evolutionary change.
Right.
And I wonder, you and I come to this from a component relations lens, with chapters and volunteer leaders in mind. How are they handling all of this?
That's a really good question. Actually, Al may have a better take on that. She's been meeting with a lot of our chapters and doing a little bit of a tour with them, and sort of this like focus group. Actually, it's a very intentional, very like specific focus group that is chapter specific, chapter to chapter to chapter, asking the same questions. So we're gathering some, narrative around that. So I think it's great. But I will say, in general, just speaking generally, change for volunteers, I think, impacts them a little bit more and a little differently than it does folks on staff. Because they swap out, and because this is a volunteer role. So for them to come in with an expectation of, this is how we've always done it, and then to say, oh, Band-Aid's coming off, this is how we're doing it now. And all of the work that goes behind making sure that those changes are socialized appropriately to this volunteer workforce, because that's what they are. They're a workforce. And I think we always forget that. We think of them as, maybe free labor sometimes, or we think of them in a servant leadership, aspect of things, which is great. I know lots of folks like the term servant leadership, but this is a workforce. So they do need to be, I think, groomed and trained and catered to in a way that helps the parent organization achieve its goals, by sharing that vision, by sharing that focus, and making sure everybody has a clear understanding. We're all on the same page.
I think
that transparency piece.
Yeah, I mean, Jess, you nailed it with the transparency piece. And one of the things that Jess and I are working on with the chapters, because healthy chapters make for a healthy association, right? So it's one of the things I wish we could move more quickly on, but we're going to do it with intent and purpose so that we stay on our goals, is appreciation. When we need to be mindful that these people have full-time jobs, and then are also giving their time to us as well. And so when we make these changes and when we do these things, Andrew, like you talked about, that are so different, as long as you answer the why, right? If you give the reasons why you're doing something, it really helps settle people and they understand a bit more. I'm not saying that everyone might like what comes, but at least there's an understanding and a perspective that it's not just done to be done for the sake of doing it. And I echo something that I heard. Coy did a kind of a really lovely State of the Union in January. I guess at the time everybody says, here's where we are, here's where we're going. And one of the things he said, it doesn't have to be perfect when we launch it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to be polished, and we need to be ready to change. But let's move that word out of our vocabulary and get ready to do something. Might be messy, and we'll learn from it, and we'll make it better. And I really enjoy working under leadership like that, because it's transparent and honest and authentic.
What were the circumstances that predicated your appointment? And because you're talking a lot about change, which is fantastic. I love it. But I'm not hearing change from what? What are we changing from? What were the circumstances that required changing?
So if we're speaking directly about the change at ASID and what we're looking to do there, we, Casey and I were brought in together to look at it through, like we talked about at the top of the hour, if you will. We look at it through a completely different lens. We are not interior designers. We are certainly very good at looking at magazines and figuring out what looks good, but we don't understand that. But we are good leaders and we are good managers. And one of the things that ASID is focused on is membership, right? We had a really robust and substantial membership, and then we had this thing that hit everybody, right, which is the pandemic. And although interior design exploded at that time, it hit everyone's pocketbooks differently. And sometimes an association might be seen as a luxury, and those dollars are better spent somewhere else. And so how do we then come in and look at it much differently? Like, what have we done before to engage our members? Well, is that still working now post-COVID when we're trying to capture a new set? Are we going after all of the right people? Is it easy to get into my association? Is it too hard to get into my association? These are questions that we ask because we're just naturally wondering, well, who can join? I mean, could Andrew join? If Andrew wanted to join, can I create a path for that? And what benefit could I give him? And in turn, what benefit could he bring us? So Andrew, to go to that change, it allows us outside of this industry to some degree to push harder, right? And to push harder because we only want what's best for the member. When you ask me about ASID, I always do a circle and I say, we're starting with the member and then we build from there. So what changes need to be made? That might be, to Jess's point, icky, hard, that we need to do so that we can grow membership and retain membership and be value to the membership.
That's to say that we weren't before. I'm kidding. It wasn't.
Right. Nobody, and they, that's so true. That's exactly right. I would be hard pressed to find a single association that doesn't keep their member at the core of what they want to do, right? Because that's what we're here to do. When you're looking through who else does what we do, what other associations could they join? How do we fit in that mix? And how do we rise above it and become the choice for students all the way through those who are in their second and third careers? So the makeup is vast.
Right. Well, and I love the idea that an organization does not have to wait until things are going badly,
right?
To decide change is necessary. We don't have to be on fire and sinking to decide that a new course is necessary. So this isn't about, I think, defining or using the past as the necessity for change. You know, when we talk about evolution is the constant drive to improvement. And I think that's where we are. You know, Andrew's not going to put anyone else on the spot. You know, I mean, you're only 90 days in, so we don't have to have a full explanation of where we've come from. I think it's more important to have embraced where we want to go. And I
disagree. I'm sorry, Nolly. Sorry, I disagree. Right, the past is a different country. We don't need to live there, but we need to keep the postcard now and again. And actually, if we never ever reflect on what's gone before, we never learn from history. And so change is predicated on an understanding of what's happened previously so that we can either avoid or avoid disaster, repeat success. So I don't think it is true to say that we shouldn't be looking at what's happened previously. I'm not sure. I don't agree with that. I understand.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and it should be part of the why.
Yeah.
I like the it's another country. It's where we used to live. I just like organizations demonstrating the potential of change and having some early victories to win confidence and build confidence
as well, yeah.
Before we pull back the curtain and say, you know, here's the full transparency of where we've come, or maybe why we got to where we are now.
So in 90 days, Ali's going to come back and tell us.
I was going to give myself a year, Andrew. I was going to say in a year, right before Jessica's next birthday.
Ali, that's too slow, Ali. That is slow change. I don't want that.
That, you know what, in association world, that's really rapid. I'm just saying.
That's the sad part. That's the sad part. You know, and I was going to ask this earlier, what do we really think a honeymoon, and maybe it changes by title, maybe it changes by organization and what that past looks like. But, you know, I know several new executives who came on during the height of COVID, and they got somewhat of an elongated honeymoon period because there were all these external and environmental circumstances out of their control that they simply had to react to. Now that we're on the other side of that, our honeymoon period's back to 90 days, 6 months. And I don't know, we've mentioned Casey, we should probably give her a proper nod. Casey Awad is your chief growth officer.
Right.
And you mentioned that you and she came in together. I mean, that's a pretty powerful duo of a chief growth officer and, a chief member experience officer. I mean, those are some pretty heavy hitting titles. So I would imagine just by the nature of that, there's going to be expectations around change and improvement and value. You talked about value, experience, and growth.
With the chief executive officer who's only come in a month before you as well.
Right. I mean, this is seismic.
Yeah. It's huge.
You're right. Seismic is probably the best word I've heard to describe it as it's described. And, do we feel an enormous responsibility? We do. And we feel it twofold. We feel it for the staff, right? To create that level, consistent playing field in terms of we're here to stay, and we're here to guide. We're not here to tell, right? So I wrote that down earlier, Andrew, when we were talking about all of the things that instead of telling, we want to listen and then decide and have conversation about it. Will the answer always be what we hope? Maybe not, but at least there's conversation. And so, yes, the expectations are high. We are surrounded though by a team that really, when you ask them, it's interesting. Why do you work here? The first thing they say is, we love working with the people. And so we have a team of people that like one another and enjoy working with one another. And that helps us elevate what we want to do. Honeymoon period. Yeah, I'm 90 days. I feel like, what's that phrase? Drinking water from a fire hose. I want to know all the things right now. And I know that that's not it. So if a honeymoon period is learning one another, we're probably pretty far into that. Now it's just we're setting our strategies, we're setting our goals. We've set our 1, 3, and 5 year goals. And what does that look like? And that's the fun for me, right? Because that tells the team, yeah, we're here now. And here's where we want to be together in 3 years. Here's where we want to be together in 5 years, right? So we're invested for the long haul. When you look at a brand new set of C-suite coming in, that's the messaging that we wanted to give and did right away.
It's powerful messaging, though. I think the word together is a powerful message, and I think it's central to it is the understanding that there's cohesion behind the change.
Mm-hmm. My goal really is to help bring that together word and apply that to those component structures as well, and to all our volunteer managers or volunteer leaders who are running those operations. But I agree. I take the side of you can't live in the past as a country, but you can't ignore it to be able to figure out how you're going forward. And from my perspective, to kind of answer your question, if you don't mind, I don't want to hijack the conversation.
No, please.
Is that I think we became complacent. There was a lot of executive leadership change over the last several years. We had lost our longtime CEO, and then we brought in a member out of retirement to come and be our CEO for what was supposed to be 6 months while we found a new CEO, and ended up being more like 3 years. So I think that what we found, and this again is just from my perspective, and I'm like low man on the totem pole, but what we found is that, or what I found is that we were complacent. I guess we were complacent to a point of being in danger of getting stuck. And so how can you continue to make sure that you have a robust organization that's relevant in the marketplace for the profession? What do you need to do? And I think what they needed to do, and the CEO, executive team, and search team, and brought in Coy, Al, and Casey. That's what they needed to do to make sure that we can get out of this grind. Now, I will say, not completely stuck. We were starting to make a little bit of changes here and there to get a little bit more exposure, to become more relevant. We still have our signature, products and research and things like that. But this group, I think, has the potential, and they're well set up to take that to the next level. So wherever we were before, complacent, in danger of getting stuck, we are out of that. And now we're going to, I think, catapult into the next. What's next for ASID? What's next for interior design? The profession, the industry as a whole, which I think is great that ASID could be the trailblazer.
This is such an exciting time, and I'm excited to see where this goes. I have one last question, and I ask all my clients that I work with about how is success going to be defined? because we talk about change, and to Jessica's original point, change for change's sake is not the business we're in, is not what we're looking for here. So as much as we're focused on listening and why, has this organization or the new C-suite defined what success may look like in the short term, and how did that come about? Because that's a really challenging element, piece of these equations is, yes, we want to grow, we want to be relevant, and those are nice big fuzzy words, but what does success really look like, so we know when we got there?
That's so funny, because you said fuzzy word. I use fluffy words when you're using fluffy.
You can be fluffy, I'll be fuzzy, and Andrew will be what?
Well, no, I was going to say, sorry, fuzzy words, fluffy, fuzzy words don't come naturally to Elisa. So you're totally cool using them.
Oh, interesting. I'm a big fluffy word person. So my thesaurus and I are good friends. That's a great question. In the short term, you want short-term and long-term wins, right? And what does success look like for us? I mean, my personal wish is we have a membership goal. We've seen a little bit of decline in membership over the last couple of years, many catalysts wise. So my short-term goal is let's hold flat, and then let's add percent growths for that each year till we get to the number that we want. So the short term for us, we work on we end September 30th, so we don't have a lot of time, but we'll get there. That's short term for me, which will also bridge into long term to get to where we want to do. We have quick wins that we want to address in a success place, which is, what does our reward system look like? How can we involve the chapters in that quickly for what they're doing at the chapter level? How can we then get them elevated to the national level? And that's just time and quick decisions, and not getting mired in too much of the how. Let's just push it out, like we talked about earlier. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be polished. So let's just push it out, and we'll learn from what we did. So that's one there. So it all for me right now goes back to membership. And Elisa, you asked, how did we do that? In December, the leadership team sat down and took a couple of days to really dive into who we are, what do we think are the 5 keywords that define us, and where do we want to go? And we followed a book called Traction. I highly recommend that book to anybody listening. It's a great book on how to dive into your organization and look at it strategically and figure out how to do the best that you can. And that's the guide that we use to set our goals. If there's anything I heard from the teams when we first came in is, what are our goals? They want KPIs. They want to be measured. And so that's what we're doing. Does that help? Jess, you have anything that you want to add to that?
So much, but I don't know that we have time.
Well, how about we'll use this as an opportunity to give you an open and standing invitation to come back to Association Transformation and let us know how things are going.
Love that.
I'm so impressed. I didn't mean to put you on the spot in some ways. I just think it's important for other organizations and nonprofits to know what, to really be able to dissect what living with change and leading with change looks like, because a lot of the fluffy words can take over, and just the momentum of the potential gets people excited, and it becomes its own thing. And we forget about what we're truly measuring, and we forget about the mission driven piece of this. So I so thank you for pulling back the curtain for us and being transparent, and for Jessica to give us kind of the old administration, the new administration joint perspective, because I know it's staff like yourself that bridge that old country and all the legacy and all the knowledge and all the passion for the members that has been there for so long into this new future. So a really, really dynamic duo you two are, and I so thank you for joining us today. Andrew, thanks. You were here too. Thank you. I didn't.
Thank you. No, speaking of dynamic duos, yeah, okay, yeah. I feel very much like Robin to your Batman, honestly.
Oh, I like that. Okay, let's do that. Okay. Well, I did say you could be Maverick this time, and I would be.
Oh, you need to move on from that. You've used that one now too many times.
Oh, but
okay. All right, fine. Well, fine. We'll go with Batman and Robin, and you're now Robin. So just there
once, you go. Just once. There's so many other partnerships that we could emulate.
All right. Well, then that's your homework. Next time you can define the duo. Okay.
Okay.
So let's close with an important reminder that tomorrow is Jessica's birthday.
Yes.
So you can
all
begin your
link. House for a party. Nice.
I will have a party. I think your invitation got lost in the mail though, Andrew.
Don't worry, that was
Okay.
So, there's my landline. Talking about the past and old school.
have a landline.
Hold on, let me go see if it's someone for Jessica's birthday.
It's the bat phone ringing. My God,
the bat phone. It's the bat phone. Yes, in the bat cave, I still have a landline bat phone. I will admit my age. Jessica's way too young to know what a landline is.
Ali's just gobsmacked. She's like,
I didn't even know people still had landlines.
Oh my gosh! All right, we gotta go.
People don't just Lisa.
Just me. All right. Well, we'll reconsider that standing invitation, but thank you for joining us. No, seriously, I am so excited to see what's ahead for ASID. And Al, thank you for joining us even here in your first 90 days. We'd love to have you back. And best of luck to you too. This is an important case study to watch. I think there's a lot for other nonprofits and associations to learn by groups that are brave and moving forward and taking these seismic changes and really pushing them forward. So thank you both for joining us here on Association Transformation. We now know that Al is our 16th, maybe 17th listener. So new goals for us here in 2023.
Already achieving. Excellent.
We're headed in the right direction, Andrew.
Right.
Here we go. So you too can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Make Association Transformation one of your favorites. And until next time, we say put your members and your mission first.